think part of the White House job summit yesterday was to deal primarily with that issue. People are finding it too hard to access the money. Why, honestly, is 3/4 of our stimulus money still not spent? Obviously, we're making it too difficult, and we make it very hard for small business. I've raised this point consistently with the administration myself. I attended a big Green Summit the other day, and I'm in this business. With the amount of paperwork and the conflicting directives, you got a lot of lawyers can help you figure out. Small businesses don't have that. We should make it an easy process for you to be able to access the loan guarantee programs. But it's not, and I think President Obama, that was a big piece that came out yesterday. And I couldn't agree more. The people who need the money the most, the small businesses, were the economic engine of this country, where most of the jobs are finding it absolutely impossible to get the money. We should make it easy. I talk to people, I travel every day. People come up to me and say, Terry, I can make wind blades, I can make the turbines. I just can't get any money. I said, these small businesses, I can hire 200-300 people tomorrow. I've applied, and I just don't hear anything back. That's what people hate about our government. Make it easy and efficient. One-stop shopping. You go in, and not that you have to go to this agency from DOE, then you've got to go over to other departments. We should not make it that difficult. And I think President Obama's on it, because he's been hearing it, obviously. It's tough out there. People, as I say, it's one of the worst economies, and people are also realizing that it's going to take a long time for this economy to come back, and people are not paying attention, as they should be. They're losing their homes. They can't send their kids to college. And it's getting too expensive to buy food. People are really pinched. We all know, everybody in this room knows somebody that's in a real economic hardship today. That's why, my campaign, the things I talk about, streamlining the government agencies. And I've been elected governor. I wouldn't have relied on VEDP. I would have changed all that. I would have had all of that moved over to the governor's office. And I, as governor, would be responsible for job growth. I want everybody, I want to walk past them every day when I walk into my office and see how they're doing. It's slow. You got to shake it up.
The Republicans are opposing almost everything that President Obama is pushing. And I was just wondering what your view is. Is this an effective strategy for them going into the elections coming up next year?
It's all they have going for me, right? They're negative on everything. And I've said this on TV consistently. They're hoping President Obama falls. They're not, some of them I know, they're not against health care, but since it's President Obama's, if they give him a success, that will hurt them politically, which, it's the worst reason to be in politics. I mean, if you're not in it to do the right things. It's not that the Republicans, if you look at the polling data, have moved up significantly. In fact, their numbers are still very low across the country. It's more that we've dropped with the independents. And so it's not like the Republicans have really gained, but we've lost. And we've lost primarily with the independents who just don't like the stimuluses. They think too much money is being spent. They hate this deficit. They hate that China has $880 billion of our debt. At the end of the day, I don't want to make it partisan, but one of my biggest criticisms of the Bush administration, I used to talk about on TV every day, is when Clinton left office, he left a $5.6 trillion surplus. We had 2 years of budget surpluses. Americans were buying a majority of the U.S. debt that we issued. Now today, over 75% of the debt that we issue is now purchased by foreigners, primarily China, Japan, and Korea. So here you have China, our biggest trading partner. Unfortunately now, folks, has now become our banker. And that is the worst position for a nation to be in. We can't get tough on China. They own close to $1 trillion of our bonds. And the second China signals that when we do our daily auctions that they're not in it, oh boy, inflation will go through the roof. It will be a very bad situation for the country. And that's what happened over the 8 years. We went from record surpluses to record budget deficits. As I always used to say, the primary thing was the first thing right out of the box was the tax cuts for the top 1%. Guys like me. I mean, I worked hard, as y'all know. I started myself and was an entrepreneur. But, why did I get 6 tax cuts under George Bush when 1.2 million kids lost their after-school program? I didn't want it, didn't ask for it. You want to really turn up this economy, give money to people who buy clothes or washing machine or a car. That's what, we didn't need the tax cuts, the top 1%. And we did it at the expense of people who really were hurt in this economy. And I just thought it was fundamentally wrong. And I think whatever you want to say. I'm the one who does remember that George Bush was still president in this country. But I get angry about it. And he left us in a very vulnerable position that now China, our big trading partner, has now become our banker. That's a tough position to be in. And we're going to be in this now for a long time. Not much you can do to really get the debt down in a bad economy.
Terry, a friend of mine who's a banker in London used to always say the difference between banking in Great Britain and the United States is that in America you can't get a loan unless you don't need it. And I think that kind of conservatism obviously didn't save us from almost near financial collapse. Is there anything that we can do in this time when those people who actually need the money get the money from financial institutions from a political or government standpoint?
And this goes back to my earlier argument. Sometimes when in a crisis that people react, and it's the reaction back to the reaction that causes problems. You talk to most small businesses today, they can't get credit. Now, if you really want to turbocharge and get our economy moving again, I think this is one of the most important things President Obama has to do. We have to send a signal to the banks. They got to start lending again. It is totally collapsed the ability of people to go in, and there's no money being put out. And listen, we're all talking sound banking, and you put the money on Scotty, you have collateral. They're not even doing that, even with collateral. One huge crisis, folks, we have coming that no one really talks about is all the commercial buildings, the commercial loans. They are all coming due over the next 8 to 9 months. We're talking close to $1 trillion of commercial. We've already gone through residential. The commercial is the next to hit. And right now, I talked to a lot of these folks who are involved in this business, who own buildings. They're being told by their banks, even though they have paid every interest payment, they've been a great business partner for the bank for 40 years, they've never missed principal interest, they're being told, get it out of the bank. We're not going to renew you. Well, you start that process of not renewing these gigantic commercial loans, you all know what happens with that. And the reason is the banks don't want any risk, and they want to get their capital up. So if they bring it back in, they get up their capital. Well, that's going to be horrible. We have to deal with it. That is coming in the next couple months. And that's something I know the president's aware that they're going to have to deal with. But we have got to start lending money again. And that's what's happened here in this country. The regulators are all over the banks. And I used to say, as you know, I was our youngest bank chairman in our nation's history at the age of 30. As my president used to say to me, Terry, you never get fired for buying overnight securities. You put a loan out, you got a risk that you're going to default. If that bank president goes out and just buys overnight securities and makes 1 or 1.5%, very safe and sound. But it's not good for the economy, and I think we've done too much this side. We're too much to get the banks capital. But I'm not talking the big, huge ones. I'm talking about small community banks across the country. That's their job, community banks. But we've got to encourage them to